So we can start with the prayers. Yeah.
Praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, to the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of false, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. The Heart Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagawan was dwelling in Master Vulture's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata Om Gate Gate Pada Gate Pada Samgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Sajipu ki ju shing me do. Chamri Rabling Ji Li Degen Pa Sangye Jing Du Mi Te Hu Wa Yi Drokun Nam Dak Jing Chopashok Idam Guduratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami.
So, good evening again, welcome. And again, we will start with a short bodhisattva motivations. So we can try to think the purpose of my life is to help and benefit sentient beings, not only just myself. And the best help benefit that we can do to oneself and others is to help to overcome all those afflictive emotions, all the obscurations. Which are the root of our problem, sufferings. In order to help others to be free from all those afflictive emotions, negative emotions and obscurations, I must achieve fully awakened state myself. In order to achieve that fully awakened state, I must engage in the bodhisattva practice, the path. For that, I need to continue to study, learn, and be reminded all the time. Therefore, I'm going to listen to the talk. And not only listen, try to integrate as much as possible from what we learn. Okay, then refuge in bodhicitta. Yes. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chudang soge chonam la chanchu patu dani kyak suche dagi shushe ki pe sonam ki Dola Pende Sangye Duba Sho Sangye Chedan Choge Chonam La Chanjo Bado Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Che She Gibe So Namke Dola Pende Sangye Duba. So last week we did the oral transmissions, and then we went through the introductions to the sutra, and where the actual sutra starts. And again, the actual sutra is, as you can see, is most time, Subhūti asking the Buddha and Buddha giving the answer. And there are sometimes Buddha asks Subhūti, and then he explained, and then if it's accurate, Buddha approve, not then clarifies, and also you can see that it starts with, also at that time, the Venerable Subhūti joining the very assembly sat down. Then the Venerable Subhūti rose from the seat, placed upper robe over one shoulder, set his right knee on the ground, bowed, joining the palm towards the Bhagavan, and said this to the Bhagavan, to the Buddha. Bhagavan, the extent to which the Tathagata Arhat perfectly enlightened Buddha has benefited the bodhisattva, mahasattvas with the greatest benefit. So that was one of the questions that he asked him, And then second, the extent to which the Tathagata has entrusted the bodhisattva, mahasattva with the highest entrustment. What Buddha has done that, Bhagavan is explanation, Sukada, it is explanation, Bhagavan how. So here it is mentioned, the highest, what is the highest benefit? The highest benefit is, to help sentient beings now and in the futures, continue now in the futures, to help them to free from the samsara and the cause of the samsara, the delusion, the obscuration, and guiding and leading towards the ultimate happiness. That is the greatest benefit. The highest entrustment, according to the Kamala Shilas, he talked about three entrustment. Entrustment to the spiritual teacher, entrusting to the spiritual teacher, entrusting to the Dharma to be benefit, and entrusting to the bodhisattvas to be benefit to all sentient beings. So those are three entrustments. Okay, that is the highest entrustments. And then the next question comes, how should one who has correctly entered the bodhisattva vehicles abide? And how to practice, how to control the mind. So first, how do we know someone has entered the bodhisattva vehicle or path? So here is asking, once you have entered the bodhisattva vehicle or the path, then how should you abide in that path? How should one practice, and how should one control the mind? So those three questions being asked. First, what it means to abide, what it means to enter the bodhisattva vehicle or path is, when one have generated, this bodhicitta mind, effortlessly, naturally, or spontaneously, then that is when someone has entered the bodhisattva path. And then that person becomes bodhisattva, And to be able to reach a point where you have this bodhicitta mind effortlessly, at the very beginning, you have to train with effort. Like everything's, it doesn't, you don't start with effortlessly. At the very beginning, it requires effort, a lot of effort. And if you continue to practice with effort, as you get familiarity with that and good at that practice, it requires less and less effort. And then you reach a point effortlessly, spontaneously, naturally, without any effort, trying to contemplate, trying to meditate, trying to feel, but effortless. You feel that the bodhicitta mind all the time. And that is when someone has developed that bodhicitta realizations. And once someone has developed that bodhicitta realization, then that is when one has entered the bodhisattva path or vehicle. And so the question is then, how to abide, how to practice, how to control. So this question, how to abide, is meaning once you have entered the bodhisattva path, how should one engage and put the effort in practicing or engaging in bodhisattva's practices, such as the 6 perfection or the 10 perfections, the perfection of generosity, morality, patience, joyous effort in virtues, meditative concentrations, the wisdom. Those are the 6 paramita or perfections. And then on top of that, and there are 4 other paramita. The paramita of method, the paramita of power, the paramita of prayers, and the paramita of exalted wisdom. So with those 4, then it becomes 10 paramitas. And as it is explained in Maitreya's, and as well as, in Chandrakirti's, all the bodhisattvas practice those 10 paramitas, and especially in 10 bhumis. And each bhumis, they all practice 10 paramita, but each of those bhumi emphasize on one particular practice of paramita. In first bhumi, generosity mostly. Then second bhumi, the moral discipline. And so that is how, in terms of those 10 paramita in relation to the 10 bhumis. Even though they practice, all bodhisattvas practice all of them, but again, they put more effort and more emphasis in working with one particular paramita at each of those bhumis. Okay? So that is what it means, how to abide. How to practice. How to practice here, it means, so when you practice such as generosity, any of those 6 or 10 perfections, how to practice that by seeing, such as the practice of generosity, for example, the object of, and maybe it will come later too, the object that you give, the object that you give, to whom you give, the act of giving, by seeing all of them as emptiness. When you practice generosity, by seeing the emptiness, and you practice. So that is how to practice here, caution. How to control, that was another. And that means once you have that understanding or emptiness of those 10 perfections, such as those generosity, and how can you maintain meditative concentrations on that meditative concentration on that wisdom, realizing the emptiness of that. So that those are those questions, and that according to that, then answers giving that, I won't be reading all of them, and you see, and that was said, and the Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhūti, Subhūti, well said, Subhūti, it is so, it is so. So Buddha was very, very extremely happy by the way the Subhūti asked the questions, Mm. So Subhūti well said, okay. I will explain to you how one should correctly enter the bodhisattva's vehicle, should abide, how to practice, how to control the mind, And then having replied, Bhagavan, so be it, the Venerable Subhūti listening according to the Bhagavan. And the Bhagavan said this, Subhūti, here, one who has correctly entered the bodhisattva vehicle should generate the mind of enlightenment, the bodhicitta mind, okay, the mind of enlightenment here, bodhicitta, thinking this, as many as are included in the category of sentient beings. So basically all sentient beings that is included. So what are those sentient beings? In terms of how they are born, born from the eggs. So, like mostly the birds and some other animals, born from the womb, a lot of animals or human beings, born from the heat and moisture, many of the insects, that you can see, born miraculously, those are the intermediate part of beings, also God, demigods, also in the hell realms, also miraculously, that is what, with the form, within the God, so with the form are those being, the desire realm who had form, as well as God realm. There are three God realms, desire God realm, form God realm, formless God realms. So with the form are the beings who have form in the desire and form realms. Without form are those beings who are in formless God realms. Okay, so then with that it includes all sentient beings of three realms, desired God, desired and form and formless God realms. So with discriminations, again, all the beings except for those beings in the formless God realm of the peak of samsara. Within the formless God realm, there are four formless God realm, and then the peak one is called Size, peak of the samsara. Okay, so that is because within the samsaric happiness, the level of samsaric happiness is peak there, within the, and then within the form God realms, there are 17, different form God realms, and like with first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, within each of them. Within the fourth jhana, then there is one part where they don't have such. It is called, they have discrimination mind at the very beginning and only at the end. Otherwise, they are kind of what you call almost like no consciousness. They're not aware. It's almost like what you call you go to sleep. At the very beginning, when they are born, they are aware of that. There's discrimination at the end. And then when they die, they are aware they are dying, but otherwise it's kind of almost like that, So that is why they call without discrimination, because they don't have that kind of obvious discriminations or awareness, and therefore also is not one of the suitable realm to practice the Dharma. It's like you have taken medicine, you have given some what you call when you go to surgery in Indonesia, and it is like that. You are aware at the very beginning a little bit, and then you are completely gone. Of course, you don't have bad feeling as well, but also, and then when you come out of that, you are aware, similar like that. Not exactly, but that. And the realm, and without discrimination, but not without subtle discrimination, and that is the formless God realm of the peak of the samsara. They do not have a very gross discrimination awareness, but they do have very subtle awareness discriminations, and therefore the realm of sentient beings, as many as are designated by imputation as sentient beings, all those I shall cause to pass completely beyond sorrow into the realm of nirvana without reminder of aggregates. So basically, in short, you say you should generate this bodhicitta mind by cultivating a wish to liberate each and every sentient beings of the six realms, okay, or three world. There are different way of categorizing it. Sometimes we categorize in six realms. Sometimes three world, the world of desire realms, the world of form world, and formless. So there are different way of categorizing, but in other words, including each and every sentient beings, without excluding one sentient beings. But to generate the wish to liberate each and every sentient beings of all realms, of six realms, three worlds, to free from the samsara and to lead them to non-abiding nirvana or fully enlightened state, and that is the bodhicitta mind. And that is conventional bodhicitta mind. So when you talk about bodhicitta mind, conventional bodhicitta mind, ultimate bodhicitta mind, there's two, conventional bodhicitta mind and ultimate bodhicitta mind. This one is conventional bodhicitta mind. Okay, with this, it explains how to develop conventional bodhicitta mind. One should cultivate that bodhicitta mind in order to enter the bodhisattva path. In order to enter the bodhisattva path or the vehicles, one need to generate such, So that is, and in order to generate that conventional bodhicitta mind, that bodhicitta mind should be induced by great compassion, loving kindness. First, you develop the great compassions, the wish and taking responsibility to free each and every sentient being from all their suffering, cause of suffering, and cultivating the loving kindness, the wish to lead them to happiness, not only happiness, ultimate happiness and cause of happiness, and taking the responsibility to do that. Having cultivated that kind of, through training, having cultivated that kind of great compassion and loving kindness and great compassion, then you develop that. On the basis of that, rooted in those two mind, then you develop this conventional bodhicitta mind. And to develop conventional bodhicitta mind, there are two factors. One is the wish to free all sentient beings from all their suffering, cause of suffering. That's one. Another factor is the wish to achieve fully awakened state by yourself in order to do that. And so those two, as material explained in ornament of realizations, that is the two factors that need in order to have the complete bodhicitta mind. In order to have the complete bodhicitta mind, two factors. One is the wish to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering, cause of suffering, as well as the other is wish to achieve that fully awakened state by yourself in order to do that. So that is conventional bodhicitta mind. Okay? So in here, the whole Sutta, it was asked and it is also explained. First, how to enter the bodhisattva's vehicle or the path, and then having entered the bodhisattva path, how to practice, abide or practice, how to practice the bodhisattva's conduct or the practice such as six perfections. And then having engaged and practiced into that, then how to achieve the Buddhahood, the result, the awakening state, and so that is basically, it explained that. And so now it explained more like the ultimate bodhicitta. Although limitless sentient beings have thus been caused to pass completely beyond sorrow, no sentient beings whatsoever has been caused to pass completely beyond sorrow. So then, while you develop this strong bodhicitta mind to liberate all sentient beings to fully awaken state or state beyond sorrow, but at the same time recognizing there's no sentient beings, there's no inherently sentient beings to be liberated. There's no fully awakened state, inherently existing fully awakened state to be liberated too. And there is no bodhisattva's practice or path that is inherently existing through which it is being liberated. So by seeing that, by seeing again, and by understanding and seeing that, then again, the bodhicitta mind that sees the emptiness or of emptiness directly of all of that is the ultimate bodhicitta mind. Okay? So, why is that? Subhūti, because if bodhisattvas engage in discriminating sentient beings, meaning if the bodhisattvas engage by seeing sentient beings inherent existence, and then if you think I'm going to liberate this inherently existing sentient beings to fully awakened state, even which is inherent existence, then he is not called a bodhisattva. Then such bodhisattvas will not be Arya bodhisattvas. A bodhisattva who has a grasping to the sentient being, even you have that bodhicitta mind, true bodhicitta mind, but if you still have a grasping, then you are not a Arya bodhisattvas, because you don't have direct realization of emptiness. Why you are still grasping is because you don't have direct realization of emptiness. Therefore, you are still grasping to the sentient beings. You are still grasping to the sentient beings, the object of compassion. You are still grasping to the fully enlightened state, the object of attainments. You are still grasping to the path that lead to that attainment. So as long as you have that kind of discriminating or grasping of inherent existence, or discriminating or grasping inherent existence, then such is not a Arya Bodhisattva. So that is where it is. And so therefore, so when we engage into practice of compassion, loving kindness, bodhicitta, at the same time, we try to bring the practice of wisdom of emptiness by understanding, and thereby not getting any kind of grasping to any of them. If you don't get grasping, then you have less problems. You know? If you don't have that grasping, if you bring the wisdom, even you see, you understand, you see, you feel this unbearable pain and suffering of sentient beings that need to be liberated, but you don't get overwhelmed by that pain, that sufferings. Because while you understand, while you see the pain, while you understand the pain, while you feel the pain, but you will not be overwhelmed by that pain because of your understanding of emptiness of the sentient beings, the suffering itself, the suffering, the emptiness of the suffering, and the emptiness of sentient beings who are suffering. And because of that, while you feel this compassion, while you feel this bodhicitta mind, at the same time, you will not be overwhelmed by that. But if we don't have that wisdom, understanding of that emptiness, then we have strong grasping to the pain, we have strong grasping the sentient being, and we have strong grasping the sentient being who is going through this pain, and then you become overwhelmed by that, the pains. Mm? Yeah. The problem with us is, either we don't feel the pain of sentient beings because we create some kind of wall, because the moment we open, we feel overwhelmed by that. Because we become overwhelmed by the pain and we don't know how to handle it, we become too overwhelmed, so then we try to create this kind of wall to protect ourselves. But when we destroy that wall and when we try to feel the compassions and towards them, then again we become too overwhelmed. And that is because we don't have that wisdom. But if we can bring the wisdom path in that, and due to not having wisdom, due to that grasping, but if we try to bring the wisdom, understanding the emptiness of that, then while you truly understand, see, and feel, but you don't become overwhelmed by that. And so that is, here again. And same, when we get strong grasping to the enlightenment, and again, it comes with a lot of expectations. And with that kind of expectations, it lead to a lot of disappointment, pains, And same with the path itself. When we have a grasping to the path itself, again, it comes with a lot of expectations. And with that expectation, again, come with the disappointments. Disappointment with sometimes with ourselves, or, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good practitioner. I'm not good enough. I'm not being able to really, integrate all of that. I'm unable to really live up to all these teachings, all this practice. So sometimes we can be disappointed with ourselves. Sometimes we're disappointed with the path itself, is leading nowhere, And all this comes, why? Because we are grasping, And so again, why do we practice? So that is why the subjects of this sutra is so important to overcome all these kind of expectations and disappointments and all of that, even on the path, While we are trying to be on the path, but still we go through all this, we have gone through so much in our life with all these kind of expectation and disappointment and all these things. And to solve that problem, sometimes we come to the path with the hope that we can find to overcome and work with those expectations and those disappointments. And then again, when we get so, attached to this due to that strong grasping to all of that, again, it brings another what do you call expectation and then disappointment and all of that. Okay, so that is why is that Subhūti? If anyone engaged in discriminating sentient beings or engaged in discriminating living beings or engaged in discriminating person, they are not to be bodhisattvas. So sentient being, living being, person, they all mean same. It's a different terms. In Tibetan, each of them have their own meaning, but I think in English probably it doesn't make sense. When you translate literally, the Tibetan terms, there are two words to each, and each words each has meaning, and then it basically it means same, but it has a what you call connotations. Yeah, connotations. It has different connotation, even though it means same, but connotations. Yeah. And next is how to so that is how to enter the bodhisattva path or vehicles. And now the other cautions, once you have entered the bodhisattva vehicle, how to avoid, how to avoid. And that is the asking. Once you have entered the bodhisattva path, then how to engage in that path and abide in that path. And the way to abide in that path is then by practicing in the practice of 6 perfection or 10 perfections. And so that is where now it comes. Further, Subhūti Bodhisattva gives a gift without abiding in a thing, gives a gift without abiding in any phenomena whatsoever. So then here is one should engage in a practice of 6 parameters, such as the practice of generosity. Okay, so then here it explains Buddha doesn't go through each of those 16 parameters, but he starts with the first one, and then you should understand that. And here, starting with the gift here, meaning giving gift means practicing generosity. The parameter of the generosity, the first parameter, So whatever you give, whether you give or practice generosity of material wealth, whether you practice the generosity of your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences, whether you practice the generosity of giving on your own bodies or whatever, whatever object that you are able to give or practice the generosity, you try to practice generosity, training in generosity, try to practice the generosity. And when you practice the generosity, try to practice generosity, again, without any expectations. Without any expectations. true generosity, when you are able to practice without expectation to the other person to return favor for your generosity in the futures, to return the favor. If you have that expectation, if the other person doesn't extend the favor, then you get disappointed and upset and angry and all of that. I help you when you need it, and now you don't help me when I need it. How horrible person you are, how ungrateful you are, Whether we say it or not, in your mind, you feel it. This person is very ungrateful. This person is, so that, or sometimes we expect, praise, or acknowledgement. We want to be acknowledged, and when acknowledgement is not done, for whatever reasons, sometimes forget, sometimes whatever reasons, we get hurt. I helped and he didn't even acknowledge that. He didn't even say that. And again, that kind of disappointment, hurts come because their expectations. And sometimes we have expectations also for futures, to have more wealth in the future life. That is another level of expectation. Or to have, higher level of happiness from that in the futures. That is also another level of expectations. So when we do practice generosity, we train and learn to practice the giving generosity without any expectations in return, any kind of return, this in futures. And in order not to have any kind of those expectations, then we practice, learn by bringing the wisdom, by seeing, again, the emptiness of the object, by seeing the objects of the generosity, whatever you are giving, by seeing that as an empty of inherent existence, not existence from its own side, also in terms of, to whom you are giving, the person who's receiving, by seeing that as a empty of inherent existence, you yourself who is giving, who is practicing, by seeing it as a empty of inherent existence, and the act of giving itself by seeing as empty of inherent existence. And when you are able to give without any kind of grasping, by seeing the emptiness, all of that, then with that, then you have less expectations, attachments, expectations, and then the practice of generosity become true practice of generosity and powerful, So that is here. So that is why when you give, without abiding in the things, without abiding in the thing means without getting grasping to the objects, without grasping to the objects, Here, not abiding in things or the objects means not grasping to the objects. And the way we don't, how not to get grasping the objects by seeing the emptiness of that objects. If we are able to see the emptiness of objects, then there is no object to be grasped to. There's no object to hold on, to grasp on when you see the emptiness of that, And then it goes more detailed, gift should not be given in visual form and so forth. And so then, why is that? Why should one try to practice giving or generosity without discriminating or grasping and abiding. And why is that? Subhūti, because the heap of merit of those bodhisattvas who gift without abiding, Subhūti, is not easy to take measure of. So here it says, if you engage in the practice of generosity, for example, you create a lot of merit, And we need the merit to achieve enlightenment. We need the merit to be more help to sentient beings. Sometimes I think people have this misunderstanding. Merit being self, if you have a creating merit being it sounds like it being selfish. It's not. If you want to help others, you need merit. To have the resource to help others, you need the merit. To have the wisdom, knowledge, experiences to help others, you need a merit. To make a progress in our spiritual path, within the bodhisattva path, moving from one path to another path, from one bhumi to the next bhumi, and to achieve enlightenment, you need a merit. And as you make more progress on your path, the more you are able to help benefit others. The more tools and qualities you develop to be more help and benefit to others. And to do that, you need a lot of merit. So I think sometimes merit is kind of misunderstood, especially I think maybe it is something to the word itself. I don't know, in the West, I think the translation merit, I don't know, that seems to be. So anyway, so if you practice, and also, to achieve enlightenment, as Nagarjuna said, may I be able to achieve the two kayas, Dharmakaya and Rupakaya, enlightened state by having completed the two collections, the collection of merit and collection of wisdom. So we need those two collections, collection of merit and collection of wisdom, in order to achieve those two enlightened states. And so therefore, that is why, again, here in this sutta, Buddha talked a lot about the merit, a lot about merit. So by engaging in practice such as generosity, moral discipline, patience, and so forth, you create incredible amount of merit. Okay? But if you practice those other perfections with the support of the wisdom, by seeing them empty of inherent existence, the merit is unmeasurable, immeasurable. There's no comparisons. So by practicing generosity, you create a lot of merit. But if you practice the generosity with the grasping, there's a limit to the merit. It's not immeasurable. There's a limit to the merit. But when you practice the same practice, generosity, by understanding the emptiness, by bringing the wisdom, realizing emptiness, by seeing, as I mentioned, the emptiness of the object of the practice of generosity, the act of generosity itself, the person who is practicing yourself as empty, and the person who is receiving all as empty. By empty, the merit that you create is immeasurable. So that is what it says. Because such generous, as we said before, become then without any kind of, conditions, without any conditions. You are able to do practice without any conditions, without any expectations, truly practice. The practice become, pure without that grasping. So then, Buddha give example, Subhūti, what do you think about it? Do you think it's easy to take the measure of space in the east? And then, Subhūti replied, Bhagavan, it's not so. And then west, north, south, all of them up, down, 10 direction. Again, each of them you cannot measure, to measure the sky, the space, So then Subhūti replied, Bhagavan, is not so. And then Bhagavan Buddha says, Subhūti, similarly, the heap of merit of bodhisattva who gives a gift without abiding is also not easy to take measure of, Mm. So then in many of the Lamrim, you can see, when you read the chapter on the six perfections, that how we can bring, while you are practicing generosity, how you can bring all other five paramita into that, combining all practice together. Same when you practice morality, you can combine all five practice, rest of five with that. Each of them, how you can combine all. And so similarly here, how you combine the wisdom and generosity. But you can also combine the morality with this practice, patience with this practice, joyous effort in virtues in practicing this, meditative concentration and all of that. And so that by doing that, then again, with each practice, you can actually bring all other practice together, and that become even more powerful, mm. So I think the practice of generosity is the practice to give, learning to give, whatever objects, without any condition, expectations. And then, practicing moral discipline, is training, especially in bodhisattva practice of morality, reframing from having a selfish attitude, reframing your mind from being selfish attitude, so out of the attitude to be help and benefit instead of a selfish attitude to benefit for oneself, you refrain from that, out of that selfish, selfless attitude, then you train to refrain from the 10 non-virtue actions that harm others. You train to develop more positive quality virtues, so that you can be develop more positive quality virtues to be help and benefit to others. And then, on the basis of having developed those virtues called virtues and positive quality, then you try to help and benefit others in whatever way. Those three moral discipline of the bodhisattvas. Again, that is how you try to. But in engage in any of those three moral discipline of the bodhisattvas, one of the main is like in other non-bodhisattvas practice of moral discipline is refrain from those 10 non-virtues actions and engage 10 virtues actions. But here, one of the main things is refrain from selfish attitude in bodhisattvas. Whatever you do, try to do selflessly and without selfish attitude. And so refraining from that selfish attitude. On the basis of that, then you engage in those practice. And then again, while you practice the moral discipline, such as refraining from the 10 non-virtues action and so forth. But again, we do that, we train to do that without grasping to it. Again, if you have grasping to yourself, because yourself who is practicing moral discipline, if you have grasping to the moral ethic or moral discipline itself, the act itself, then again, that can lead to sense of arrogance, pride, and look down others. He or she is so immoral, so unethical, and we put them down. Sometimes we might say, sometimes we might not say, but in our mind, there's a way of looking down others, putting down others. Why? Because we feel we are more ethical, more moral, and that person seems to be less ethical, less moral on the basis of that, because of grasping to that moral itself and grasping to yourself who is practicing that. So again, but when we try to bring the wisdom by seeing the emptiness of that moral discipline, the practice of moral itself, and you who is practicing that, the act of practicing that, all of that, then again, it wouldn't lead you to have that kind of the mind of superiority, arrogant, delusion of pride. It wouldn't lead you to put others down and look down others by feeling they are less because of that. So again, same just like generosity. Also, when you practice a moral discipline, again, we try to practice through not grasping to it and by seeing the empty of inherent existence of all of that. And same engage in practice of patience, Patience is the mind, to be able to keep your mind undisturbed, unagitated, to keep your mind from getting, upset, angry, harsh mind, basically, because of someone's harm, because of some challenges, difficulties, pain, suffering, whatever, because things are not moving quick enough, not happening quick enough. Due to all of that, normally it makes our mind disturbed, agitated, upset, angry. So again, the practice of patience is to be able to keep your mind not agitated by any of those things. Training your mind not to be disturbed, agitated by any of those things. Training your mind not to have harsh feelings of mind because of those things. And that is the patience. So again, engage in practice of patience with, practice with patience for those who harms, being practiced with patience with the suffering, pain, challenges, and being having patience with your practice and virtues and so forth. Again, while we practice the patience, again, we learn to practice without grasping to it, by seeing the emptiness of the practice of patience, the patience itself, the act of practicing the patience of the objects, whether it's the someone, whether it's the situation, and you yourself who is practicing, by seeing empty of all of that, again. So when you are able to practice the patience without any kind of grasping in that way, by seeing the emptiness, but again, you will not be, it will not give to, again, that kind of similar feeling we talk about the moral disciplines, sense of superiority, sense of arrogance, pride, and so forth, by seeing, oh, how come this person how come he's so impatient, How come that he or she is not going to practice even the patience? How come that he cannot even be patient with even these small things? And there's a way of, again, looking at that, Instead of compassion, we get upset, angry, isn't it? We get patient because someone's so impatient, And again, that comes from sense of, again, that, and so seeing, applying that, and then with the practice of, joys, effort, and virtues, meditate concentration, and same thing, if you don't apply that wisdom, if you don't try to see the emptiness, and if you started to have good meditations, you are able to concentrate very well, you have good, then again, you might think you are a great meditator, then you are. Again, on the basis of that, again, you might have sense of superiority, arrogance. I'm a great meditator. I'm better than that person's, or he or her, So again, that kind. But when you see the emptiness, then again, it doesn't give any space to feel that way, So again, applying. And the wisdom, of course, we already said. So I just thought skillful means, So here, that is the 7 when we talk about 10 parameter. Because normally we don't talk about 10 parameters so much, even though you see in some of the more, bigger philosophical texts, if you see, materials, ornament or clear realizations or Chandrakiri's commentary to middle ways, and all of that, there is explanations of those 10 parameters in relation to the 10 bhumis. And there's more descriptions of that. But in general, most of the Lamrim and others, there's not much descriptions of the 4, only the 6 more emphasize on that. So in that, the skillful means it is mentioned is even when you accumulate very small amount of virtues of merit, of course, if you create, great amount of virtues and merit, but even when you practice very small amount of virtues and merit, you always try to, dedicate by seeing together all sentient beings. So, so even though it's something that you created yourself, but in your mind, that you are dedicating on behalf of each and every sentient beings, not just on behalf of yourself. Whatever virtues, whatever merit, whatever positive that I have created and that you merit, that you dedicate for fully enlightenment on the behalf of all sentient beings by making these virtues as common for everyone. It's not yours, but is now it kind of belongs to everyone, and I'm dedicating on the behalf of each and every sentient being. So it is like now it belongs to everyone, and so it's for everyone's in that way. Is and through that, then it makes the result, inexhaustible, unlike like the other virtues. And then in the practice of skillful means, then there is, trying to reduce your own shortcomings, liberating sentient beings, and achieving enlightenment quickly without so much challenges in order to liberate sentient beings. And then in perfection of power, the eighth one, so it is, again, the practice that when you engage in practice, such as the 10 perfection or 6 perfections, that your power not be overwhelmed by the oversight of those practices. So when you practice the generosity, that it is, you have such a strong practice and power that it doesn't overwhelm by the miserliness, Or when you practice patience, it does not overwhelmed by anger, the hatred, and so forth. So the opposite of those practice. So you have the power, you train power that your practice has become so strong, and each of them have developed such power that the opposite of those cannot kind of overpower, overwhelm, or disturb, destroy you. That. And in terms of that, there is the perfection of power that overwhelm the opposing factors, wrong views, and the four maras. And also there are many others, but I'm not going to go in each of them. And then perfection of prayers is, making prayer and dedications, no matter where one is born in every life, never to be separated from the bodhisattva mind, and then to be able to practice, not to give up the practice of bodhisattvas, to be help and benefit to sentient beings, never to give up, never to discontinue the bodhisattva's practices, no matter how challenging and difficult. So always keeping that in your mind, praying, dedicating to do that. And then in terms of that practice of, the perfection of prayer, then the practice of prayers of accumulating the merits, engaging in the sentient beings, benefit to sentient beings, and then engage in a practice to achieve the Buddha field. And then perfections is in the exalted wisdom, the exalted wisdom of, realizing the emptiness. And in that, realizing the emptiness of conventional phenomena, ultimate phenomena, and in both of them. So these are a little bit about the 10 perfections. So that is what we talk about, how to abide, how to enter the bodhisattva path, how to abide, and then how to practice, and then how to control. So how to abide is engaging those, entering is generating bodhisattva mind, and abiding engaging the 6 or 10 perfections, and then practicing is practicing those 10 perfections by seeing the emptiness of them, and then controlling the mind. Once you have that realization of emptiness of those 10 perfections, then trying to hold without any what you call distractions, without distraction, controlling the mind is single point, holding those practice single pointly, without distraction, without excitement, without dullness. So that is how to practice. Okay. I think that is, and then next comes to the having engaged in the practice of 6 and 10 parameter, then achieving the result, the fully awakened state. And when you talk about result, the Buddhahood, the awakened state, that is the result is the awakened state. When we talk about awakened state, in the Mahayana Sutras, as we see explanations of that in the form of, 2 kayas, 3 kayas, 4 kayas, Basically, it comes to 2 kayas, and then when you expand, it can be 3 kayas and 4 kayas. But basically, it's 2 kayas, or 2 enlightened or awakened state, what we call Dharmakaya and Rupakaya. Okay, those are 2 kayas. Sometimes you see 3 kayas. So when you see 3 kayas, then within the Rupakaya, there is 2. Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. And so there's Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. So then it becomes 3. Because you see sometimes 2 kayas, sometimes you see 3 kayas, and sometimes you see term 4 kayas. And when it's 4 kaya, then the Dharmakaya has 2. Natural Dharmakaya, wisdom Dharmakaya. Okay? When that is expanded, then Dharmakaya can be expanded too. Natural Dharmakaya and wisdom Dharmakaya. And same way, Rupakaya is expanded, then there is Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. So with that, then it becomes 4 kayas. Okay? I think natural Dharmakaya is, okay, wisdom Dharmakaya is the enlightened mind or the wisdom of the Buddha, fully enlightened or awakening, the enlightened wisdom of the enlightened beings is the wisdom kaya, wisdom Dharmakaya. The emptiness of that wisdom of enlightened beings is natural Dharmakaya. And the emptiness of that one is called natural Dharmakaya because that emptiness is always been like that all the time from the very beginning or from the beginningless. So there is 2. And then when you Rupakaya is the form body. Rupa means form. And so then the enlightened beings come in the form body in order to help benefit because sentient beings cannot experience Buddha's enlightened mind. Since we cannot experience Buddha's enlightened mind, the way we receive help, guidance from the Buddha is so that they come in the form body, and through form body, then through the practice example, they give inspirations, encouragement, confidence, as well as they teach and show the path. So that is where Then the Rupakaya. Rupa means form bodies, in order to help benefit sentient beings. And that has Sambhogakaya is the those in the form where with all the major, minor signs of enlightened beings in full display, and only high level bodhisattvas can see them and encounter and engage. Only the high level Arya bodhisattvas can have access to that. So for ordinary beings, then it comes in nirmanakaya form, manifestation form. And that is where ordinary beings can see that and interact and receive the teaching and everything. So that is, so a little bit on, I have to explain a little bit because when we come to here, it explains about the result. So it explains engage in practice bodhicitta to enter, and then engage in the practice of 6 or 10 paramita, and then the result awakening. So that is here where it says, Subhūti, what do you think about it? Is one view as the Tathagatas due to the perfect marks? So the perfect marks here are referring to the major and minor signs of enlightened beings. And that's the result, the Rupakaya. Talking about the Rupakaya directly in terms of that, And then Subhūti replied, Bhagavan, is not so. One is not viewed as Tathagatas due to the perfect marks. Why is that? Because that itself, which Tathagatas call perfect marks, are not perfect marks. So, through engage in a practice of 6 perfection, then one is able to achieve the enlightened state of 2 kayas, and especially Rupakayas, where sentient being can see, with all the, 32 measure marks and, 80 minor signs of enlightened beings, So there are those, again, I don't think we need to go them, such as some of those are like, if you have seen some of the Buddha's footprint, handprint, there is always the chakras, the wheel. So again, those are some of the marks. When Buddha touch anything, there is the wheel mark, whether with the feet, whether with the hand, and there are other marks here in the middle, we call Zobu, Ushnishas, and many others. So those are some of the enlightened mark, okay? If someone hit you and is swollen, that is not the Ushnisha, okay? You might get confused with that and think, oh, maybe I have the enlightened mark or sign because it come like this. My mom used to have something, I don't know what you call, lump here, in the very middle, quite big. But again, if there's such big mark, you might think that is the enlightened mark, but that is not. But so those are just some examples of those major and minor mark and sign of enlightened beings. So again, by engaging those practices, one achieve the result, the awakened state with 2 kayas, such as with those signs. But even then, again, you shouldn't see enlightened beings as inherent existence. If you see enlightened beings inherent existing, those kayas, then again you have grasping. And if you have grasping, again, there's problem. And so therefore you try to see that even those are empty, even the enlightenment, not only the path, not only the path that lead to enlightenment, empty of inherent existence, even the result, the enlightenment, the ultimate result is also empty of inherent existence. So we don't get, again, attached to the very ultimate goal, the very ultimate result. Again, we can see when you are attached to that and when you are grasping to that, again, it can give a lot of stress because it's like you feel like I need to be there all the time. I need to achieve that. There's no, you cannot know how to practice with a relax, you know, because there's this feeling, or I need that immediately, there's a grasping, you know. It's like sometimes you see some dogs, animals, or maybe even human beings, maybe, but I've seen with some dogs, you know, where maybe because maybe when they were young, maybe they were starved, they didn't get enough food or whatever for reasons, they cannot wait. They don't eat, they can bite, you know, they eat so much and then they get sick. They cannot stop. And something like that, you know, and so then you cannot relax. They cannot relax and chew it and enjoy it. They just go after it like that. And that is sometimes we do with our practice. We don't know how to relax while we do the practice, because there's that similar like grasping, you know, like, you know, I need now and this, all this. And so, and then that brings stress. That brings stress. Instead of learning to practice, not giving the practice, practicing with effort, perseverance, but at the same time being able to relax. So that when you are able to practice with the perseverance, but with the relax, without that kind of grasping to the result, and that, then you know you don't get so stressed out. Otherwise, it can bring stress on mind, on mental level, on physical level as well. Okay, so I can take one or two questions if there is any questions. If anyone has any questions. If not, then we do the dedication. We don't need to do the, yeah. Yes.
Geshe, thank you
Yes,
for the teachings. And I feel like a lot was said about grasping today. And I think
did I say grasping or grasshopping?
I think it was about grasping.
Really? I thought I said grasshopping. Yes. This.
I'm wondering, Geshe, in that context, I think in Lama Chopa there is a verse saying that the bodhisattvas use desire in the path but are not stained by it. Is that in Lama Chopa or somewhere else? Yes. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about it, because it somehow is part of almost having a mind, I have a feeling. It seems very difficult to abandon it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me like I don't have any understanding how one can be unstained by it, because it seems like the ugliness of it is also very obvious, and the problems that it creates are also very obvious. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about it.
Because, you know, we learn language later, you know, so sometimes we have difficulty with pronunciations, accents. So sometimes, you know, I heard Lama Luntu, you know, he has taught, he gave teachings on self-grasping, but sometimes it comes out grasshopping, and people listening, why is talking so much about grasshopping? it reminds me. So, there are different way of understanding that. There are even though there is a concept of using the desire, the bodhisattva, to help and benefit others. And of course, especially in Tantra, there is mostly in Tantra. In Tantra, they talk about, transforming the desire, anger, ignorance into the path. But sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean the actually delusional anger, delusional attachments, or delusional ignorance. When we talk in Tantra, when they talk about anger turning into the path, is talking about more wrathful energies. That is based on true compassions. Okay? It's very different, the wrathful energies that's based on true compassion and real anger. The real anger is not based on compassions. It's opposite of compassions. So that sometimes that can, even though we might be using the term transforming anger into the path, but it doesn't mean this delusional anger is more talking about wrathful means, because when you have anger and delusional, you become aggressive. It's an aggressive mind. And so, but wrathful mean is that is rooted in true compassion, but the method sometimes requires a little bit more tough than the wrathful. But it's not same that. And same with attachments. When you talk about attachment, is not necessarily, again, we are talking about this uncontrolled delusional attachment where we have no control, but it is talking about some kind of energies that is, the desired energy that helps to open your channels, chakras, and thereby to be able to have access to the more subtle, powerful mind. And so transforming that into that, so like that, sometimes it doesn't. So there is that understanding sometimes. But in Sutra, they talk about bodhisattvas, out of that attachments, transforming, in some teaching sutras and others, it talks about the bodhisattvas manifesting many children, and through those children, then benefiting and helping. So that it is like, it's like you have one and you manifest many of your own, that each of them bodhisattva, and then manifestation of that, and manifestation, and so there's so many sentient beings. So just as we need a desire or attachment to create a child, in generally speaking, in the same way the bodhisattvas use that energy to manifest, many children and many others, and so that there can be more bodhisattvas, more resource to help and benefit. And that is one way of transforming for the benefit of sentient beings. Of course, there can be, where there is actually, those children are actually real manifestations, or actually is a real children like us, like someone's, a bodhisattva can create a bridge and then it can be lost and then it can disappear, or they can manifest another animal and then after that they can disappear, or manifest as a human beings and they can, there is that also how they can manifest. But another way of manifesting is taking a rebirth, being born in this family, just like ordinary beings. So whether those child are that manifestation or actually being born, that I think maybe there might be two different understanding, explanation, but in Sutta, that is how they explain about transforming the desire into path to benefit and help sentient beings. That is how it is explained. And I think there is a difference, whether it's in Sutra, whether it's in Tantra, when they are trying to bodhisattva, when try to transform those, whether it's desire, energy, and other energies to into the path to benefit. It's not same like that we are being overwhelmed by those where we have no control. Do you get it? Where you have no control and you are being overwhelmed by one of those negative emotions, such as desire. In their cases, they have control over that. Despite that, on the control of that, they use that energy for the benefit of others. So there's two differences. If you are able to have control, at the same time you use that energy for something high purpose, then it's okay. But if you don't have control over that energy yourself, then how are you going to benefit others? You know? So that is where whether one has the control or not. You know? So because they have control, you know, even though they can completely destroy it, but it can be transformed into something to help benefit others. So they do not eliminate completely, but they have control over it, over that energy. So that is one thing, I think. So otherwise, sometimes we might pretend that we are using it to benefit to others. That might be just deceiving ourselves. So again, if you have total control over that energy and you feel that energy can be some benefit and help, then that can be. Sometimes, you know, like if someone has total control over their anger, and if they can use that anger for a high, to give more energy to make things move and things happen, then that will be positive and positive. But to do that, you need to have total control. When you have no control and when you are really under the influence of that, you are being controlled by anger, not you have control over anger, then you cannot help and benefit others. That kind of anger cannot. But someone who can have total control over that, then it can be used to make things move, so directing in something for positive in that way. Yeah. Okay. So we can do the dedication. Yeah.
Devadi Nuriga Lama Sangye Drugyurne Drovachikam Malupa Gopasho Jancho Samcho Rinpoche Make Panam Ke Yuche Kewanam Pame Payam Gongne Gondu Pelwa Sho Gangri Rawe Korwe Jinkandir Pendan Dewa Malu Zhongwei Chen Rei Xinghua Tenzin Getsoyi Jape Site Bardu Tengyurchi. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pradika Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings. Through explanation and practice, you are the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Good night.